Hello, and thank you for joining us once again here on India on 99.94. I'm your host, Nikesh Shrugani, commentator, journalist, and broadcaster based in the UK, and my co host, Sarah Warris. From Wisden. Sarah, just before coming on this link to record our podcast today, I saw a tweet from you, and I think happy birthday wishes are in order. Happy birthday.
Thank you, Nikesh. Older,
I won't
not
ask your age.
wiser. As
I won't
well.
ask your age. It's quite rude, but it's fair to say you're a little bit younger than me.
Inching towards
we'll just
30.
leave it as that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry?
Inching towards 30.
Inching towards 30, not out. Good solid
there.
score in the shortest format of the game. Depends what the strike rate is and all that as well. But anyway, enough about your age. I hope you have a lovely birthday nonetheless. But we are here to discuss the latest goings on in Indian cricket. And as we sit here, we are a couple of days away from India's tour of Zimbabwe starting. It's non-stop cricket for India and their white ball sides in particular. And now the men are over in Zimbabwe preparing for that particular series down there. It's been a while since India went on a tour of Zimbabwe that actually meant something, that was, all the big boys turned up for and was seen as an even contest. I mean, Zimbabwe have had some great results over India over the years. If you go down the history books as well, Zimbabwean cricket obviously has had its fair share of problems, as has the country and the whole political scene over there. But look, as we look ahead to this men's series, it's a bit of a B team, a C team that India have sent over there. Of course, the main team, particularly the T20 boys, out in Asia, preparing for the Asia Cup, basically in the UAE, which starts at the end of August as well. What do you make of the whole Zimbabwe tour, the way it's been sort of shoehorned in to this season? Is this just the future of world cricket and what it's going to be like? You're going to have to field, 30, 40 player squads and just deal with whatever comes your way. What would you make of the whole thing?
I would just say it's the new normal. You will have to get accustomed to watching more and more B teams, if you say, playing the lesser competitive sides. Like we saw in West Indies, obviously Rohit Sharma and Pant were back for one half of the series. But that is going to be the new normal. It will help in workload management. It will help in making the more competitive games even more competitive. And even like if India field an A team in Zimbabwe, we know it's going to be like a very not an even contest. So kind of this way you expect the series will be a little more competitive, which I think is not the worst move. So in the future, like if India plays a B team or even a C team against Bangladesh, you can expect more competitive games rather than them playing an A team against Zimbabwe. So no complaints on
Yeah, I
that
mean,
front.
it's got some nostalgic feels to it, this series, when you look at some of the Zimbabwe versus India battles over the years. And look, India have obviously got the upper hand if you look at the overall records and things like that. But in Zimbabwe itself, I mean, there was a time where Zimbabwe were causing problems for all sorts of teams around the world. I remember them beating England in a one-day international series. I think it was back at end of the 90s, something like that. I was just a kid. I can't remember exactly which year it was, but they had Edo Brandes who took a hat trick against them, who was a chicken farmer. That was his profession. He wasn't a professional cricketer. He was just a guy who farmed chickens, ran out for Zimbabwe every now and again in international cricket, and took a hat trick against England and was part of that series win against the English back then. You go back to some of the battles they've had for against India over the years as well. You've got Andy Flower, Grant Flower, Heath Streak, Henry Alonga, Neil Johnson. There's some fantastic cricketers that these guys have had over so many years, and it's a shame, isn't it, to see what has happened to the country in the last couple of decades, and indeed the cricket as a result of that as well, and lots of young Zimbabwean cricketers not able to get the opportunities and the training and the necessary things required to make it to that next level, but also lots of young cricketers reaching their teens and deciding to leave for places like South Africa in order for a better life and more opportunities. It's quite a sad state of affairs that their cricket finds itself in, isn't it?
Yeah, so that's why I would say that this tour of India, some might ask, is it really necessary? Like, will it help Zimbabwe? Like, will it help the Indian team? What will come of it? Like, will it benefit the Indian team as such? But in this, you have to see what it does to global cricket and what it does to Zimbabwe cricket. Um, like, if when India toured Australia last year, this Cricket Australia earned as much as 300 million. So obviously Zimbabwe cricket is not going to earn that much, but even if they earn like the a minute fraction of that, is going to do so much for not only the board, the players, their lifestyle, but even the right down to the grassroots level. So if you say that India touring Zimbabwe will not really help Indian cricket, it does a lot for Zimbabwe cricket, which I think needs to be applauded. Like the BCCI has been sending the team regularly. It's been 6 years since the last tour, but they have been frequenting Zimbabwe, uh, visiting Zimbabwe frequently. So I think that needs to be applauded.
Yeah, and I suppose it's part of this whole thing that, I put out a post about India's 75th anniversary of independence, and we'll talk more about that a little bit later. But I mentioned in there that that basically it's come full circle almost, the cricketing world landscape, in terms of, look, 75 years ago, and even in the decades that went after that, India were looked down on as a cricketing nation. They used to compete at home sometimes, but no one really enjoyed touring India. No one could be bothered to invite India for too many tours abroad to places like England and Australia. Yeah, there were the odd ones here and there every once in a blue moon. Now everybody's lining up begging to play India because India is at the power. It's the superpower in world cricket. It's basically the breadbasket. It's without Indian cricket, world cricket would be a much poorer proposition, both financially and commercially as well. So you just look at that situation, and with great power comes responsibility as well. And India doing their bit, I suppose, and we don't want to be patronising towards Zimbabwe cricket. I've just reeled off some of the legends that have played for them in the past and some of the great battles that they've had with, some very strong teams over the years as well. But look, it's not at the situation that it was back then right now, and they need help. They need money. They financially strap these cricket boards in places like Zimbabwe and many other boards around the world. Even if you look at countries like Sri Lanka, who are not a minnow by any stretch of the imagination in terms of a cricketing nation, but just really struggling financially. Bangladesh Cricket Board as well isn't exactly flushed with money. The West Indies we've talked about over a number of years as well. So touring places like this on a regular basis, I suppose they're doing their bit as well. Yes, they might not always be able to send their best team, but the fact that India are there, it's an Indian men's team with all the commercial aspects that come with that, the TV rights, and you're absolutely correct. Even if Zimbabwean cricket could earn $1 million or a couple of $1 million out of this series, and they might even earn more than that, I don't know the exact figures, that is huge for a country like Zimbabwe and a cricket board like theirs.
Yeah, I agree. And on that note, the Indian cricket BCCI has been criticized so much for being this money churning entity with the IPL and all. And it has had its fair share of criticism. I'm not disagreeing on that. I'm not agreeing on that. But my point is, we also have, while we look at this, we also have to see over the years, they have done their bit, whatever small it is, they have done their bit towards these poorer nations, so to say. They have given their home ground. Afghanistan men's cricket team have their home ground in India, so they have played home matches in Lucknow. Greater Noida is their home ground currently. Dehradun, even a stadium in Delhi. Uh, the first test match of Afghanistan, India played almost a full strength side, barring Virat Kohli. Ajinkya Rahane was the captain, so it was almost a full strength side. And after that, the gesture of calling the Afghanistan team at the presentation, and Rahane and team clicking a picture with them was memorable. It was historic. Um, Recently, the Indian cricket team traveled to South Africa despite the scare of the Omicron. Um, Graham Smith, they had no reason to. They could have easily cancelled that. But Graham Smith later thanked the BCCI, saying that they could have lost $1 million, if more than $1 million, if India had not gone to South Africa. It ended up being not the most memorable tour for an Indian. But if you see the larger picture, you have to credit them for doing this. Even in the last, they have gone to Zimbabwe 4 times since 2010. If you see England and Australia, like two other countries from the big three, they have not visited Zimbabwe since 2004. It is due to political reasons. There's a lot of background. I won't really get into that. And I'm in no place to comment because India and Pakistan also don't play a lot of matches because of these political reasons. It would have been a dream to have Virat Kohli face against Shaheen Afridi in test matches. Not to be. I'm not
Yeah.
criticizing CA or the ECB. Obviously, it's different political reasons. But India, BCCI have done their bit. And while there is criticism about the money and IPL and BCCI doesn't care, you also have to see these things. Also, I remember that when Bangladesh played their first test match in India in 2017. So Anurag Thakur, who was the president then, had said that as a leading test playing nation, it is BCCI's responsibility to give opportunity to every test playing nation. So it just shows that they have been doing their bit too. So that also needs to be seen and acknowledged, I would say.
Yeah, because when you read about the BCCI, and look, they quite rightly have received some bad press over the years for various things, and every cricket board around the world has been criticised for numerous things over many years, and the BCCI is no different in that respect. But when you look at the Western press in particular, in England and the UK newspapers, and journalists over here, they tend to hammer the BCCI for
Yeah.
everything. Any problem that there
Yeah.
is in international cricket, in world cricket, I blame the IPL or blame the BCCI. And to be honest, we saw people like David Gower doing
Yeah.
that when England were having problems in the Ashes and getting hammered down there. I mean, look, England get hammered in the Ashes all the time down under, and they won that one
Yeah.
series in 10-11, and that's about it in living memory, to be honest. So it's not a new thing, but it's quite trendy to blame the IPL, and not just the IPL. It's franchise cricket, but they always start with the IPL because without the IPL, there probably wouldn't be all these other competitions around the world as well. Not certainly on the scale that they are at the moment. So yeah, it's quite a fashionable thing to hammer the BCCI, but look, they are doing some good stuff, and this tour of Zimbabwe is a good example of that, and inviting as many countries to play against them as possible. And they have done that. Look, their players' welfare needs to probably be looked at some stage in the future because they're just playing non-stop cricket. But look, the BCCI, they're not necessarily making loads of money out of
Yeah.
Zimbabwe tours, or probably nothing actually. But they're still sending sides out there and doing their bit. In terms of the actual
I just
playing
had
side
one
of
point,
things,
like you mentioned
go
that
on.
it's fashionable to blame the IPL. Last year, when India didn't play the fifth test against England because their head coach tested positive for COVID, uh, it was almost like it's the IPL, it's just the IPL. Maybe it was true, the IPL was just 4 5 days later, but then India did return and fulfill their commitment, had a very bad outing in the fifth test match. Had no reason to probably, go and play the fifth test. India could have won the series and it would have been all jolly and yeah. But they returned, they played
Yeah.
it, and yeah. So they were, I think,
Yeah.
unnecessarily criticized last year when they did return and fulfill their commitment.
Yeah, look, I mean, there was a lot around that. You're right, the IPL was just around the corner over in the UAE, but yeah, there was COVID concern, genuine COVID concern within the camp. I think part of it was the fact that a lot of players had their
Families around. Yeah.
partners and young children with them as well, and that was the concern that will they be able to get back to either India or travel with them to the UAE, and not just that, but the immediate health concerns as well. You don't want young kids suffering with COVID, although they are, said to be more resilient. But it's besides the point. They just weren't comfortable with the whole situation. And look, a decision was made. You're right. They returned, fulfilled that commitment, and it wasn't just a one-off test. It was part of the series. They didn't, to be fair, they didn't flex their muscle when they could have flexed
Yeah.
their muscle in that case, couldn't they? They could have said, look, we're the BCCI. By default, we run
We are
world
leading the
cricket.
series.
We're
Yeah.
leading the series. That series is done. They could have said, look, we'll return next year. You can have your money for your test match and whatever. We'll still give you that test match in England where you can make money from ticket sales, TV rights, whatever. That'll be a one-off. This series is done. We've won the series 2-1, and they didn't do that. They continued the series. They could have had legitimate reasons as well. Like, look, we both got different captains, different coaches, different players as well. There's a whole different mindsets. It's so much had changed. It wasn't really a continuation of the series. It was weird. I was meant to cover the fifth test last year. I did cover it this year. I was commentating on it. It was weird.
Yeah.
I'm not going to lie. It's the whole thing surrounding the test match, the build up, during the test match as well, how to describe the situation of what's going on in the game in the context of the series was just weird.
Not having
because it didn't
Kohli
feel
as
like a series.
captain. Yeah.
Exactly. It was just the whole thing was weird. Kohli not scoring any runs, and the list goes on and on and on. But you know what? It happened. Fair play to England the way they've played in their last 4 Test matches in this English summer, and we'll see how they go. But India on the field in Zimbabwe then with this second string side. What do they hope to achieve? Is there anything for these players to achieve on the field? Of course, they're playing for India. They want to do well. They want to get in contention for bigger and better things. Are there any particular guys you're looking at? Deepak Chahar, we've mentioned before. Is he probably the front runner from this current squad to maybe make a push for the T20 World Cup?
Yeah, Deepak Chahar, but more importantly, I think KL Rahul. He's been made the captain. Dhawan was the captain. They removed him. They made KL Rahul the captain, which was very weird. But it also shows that, he's being groomed for the future. I don't really agree with that view. I somehow don't get captaincy vibes from him. He was not at his very best as captain in the IPL also. India have lost all matches under him when he captained, I think, in South Africa. So I'm not really very... it'll be a big litmus test for him. BCCI have taken away captaincy from Dhawan, such a senior member, and given it to Rahul. So I think it's a very important tour for him, not only as a batter to get back into the groove. He's been out with injury for a long time, but even to prove if he can be the next captain after Rohit, because I don't see Rohit Sharma continuing for very long. I think probably 23 World Cup.
Yeah, I mean, look,
35, 36.
Yeah, he's getting on in years. Certainly as captain. He's not the long-term solution. In terms of KL Rahul, though, look, he's going to be a shoo-in for the T20 World Cup squad. I think we can probably say that right now. I mean, okay, nobody's guaranteed their place, and players have stepped up in his absence as well. And there's a long list of people you could put in there, but they love KL Rahul. Yeah. Rahul will be in there. He scores IPL runs. Look, he gets accused of stat padding and stuff like that, but his international record is good. It's better than his IPL record in terms of strike rate, as well as the runs as well. Look, he churns out runs everywhere he goes in pretty much every format, but his strike rate is in the 140s in T20 internationals. So that goes to show he takes it up a notch at international level. He'll be in there. You're right about the captaincy situation, though. I mean, look, there's no point in giving it to Shikhar Dhawan time and time again. Yes, he's the senior member of that particular squad, but how long is he going to be around for? He's probably only in the Indian setup right now with a view perhaps to the 2023 World Cup, ODI World Cup, and that'll be that. You won't see him in India colours after that, I wouldn't have thought, unless something absolutely dramatic happens. So, yeah, don't give it to him. Try and groom guys for the future. KL Rahul, I don't see the obsession with him like you. Yeah, he's young. He speaks good English. He's got a beard. Apart from that, I mean, they're trying to get a Virat Kohli clone or something like that. He's certainly not got the passion that Kohli has. We saw that when he first stepped in for that test match in South Africa. And obviously India lost that one and went on to lose the series, even when Kohli did come back.
He did
and then
say
the limited
India
over stuff.
The country versus 11 guys. You never expected him to say that. During the South Africa test matches, it was caught on stump mic when there was a very controversial LBW decision.
Yeah.
He did go up and say that it's the entire country versus 11 guys. You never expected Rahul to say that.
He looked like, the kid on the playground at school who doesn't really speak up, but then you get so wound up, he'll come out with a comment and then everyone will be in the corner laughing at him really behind his back because it's so out of character and it just doesn't look right or feel right. And that's kind of how it felt when he did that. Okay, he did that, but that was more sort of taking it to a different level. It wasn't the passion that we've seen from Kohli over the years, taking wickets, geeing up his bowlers, his fielders, the crowd even. I know there wasn't a crowd in South Africa, but, just those sort of aspects. I don't see the obsession. He's not done particularly well as a captain. He's been in decent teams in the IPL from time to time, who've had good matches and done well in certain situations, and he's done well as a player and as a batter at the top of the order. But as a captain, it just doesn't inspire, does he? For me, a leader is somebody who you would follow out into war. In any situation, you would have their back. You would walk through a brick wall for them. That's what Virat Kohli was. He was that kind of leader. Rohit Sharma is in a different way. He's more friendly, he's more jokey, but tactically, he is brilliant. And when players need it, he will bollock them, won't he? He'll have words with players. He might not do it in the same way or with the same, inverted commas, passion, on the field as Virat Kohli, but there's no doubting he's passionate about the game and he knows what he's doing as a leader. People respect him, not only as a batter, but as a senior member of that side. You go back, MS Dhoni didn't do it outwardly as much, did he, like Kohli, but he was captain cool. He just had that stature about him. He's the Tala, he's the boss. And that's how it's been for many years. You go back to Sourav Ganguly, going back to all these great captains that India have had in the past. And we're not even going back half the way, by the way. We go back to your Kapil Devs, your Tiger Pataudis, your Gavaskars, anyone in the history. Mohammad Azharuddin for a time, had that aura about him as well. KL Rahul isn't of that mould, is he? He's this modern cricketer who's sort of been brought up on the IPL, and fair play to him. He's got the tattoos, he's got the beard, he looks good, he's got a good technique, he's quite nice to watch when he's batting, his shots and things like that.
Is he a leader?
But is that enough? Is that enough to be a leader?
Also makes you question who is the next leader. There is Bumrah, I see, but then, he'll be managed. Or will he play all formats? Will he play consistently? And he's been injured. He has had his issues with injuries. Who is the next captain? There is Pant. Again, Pant has the same issues as Rahul. He's not... I think he gets bogged down with pressure in the IPL. We've seen I don't think he's like lead from the front. I will set an example, kind of he doesn't play his natural game sort of when he's the captain. He kind of thinks he has to take on the responsibility, kind of like Rahul also. I think I've been very impressed with Hardik Pandya, but again, injuries, we'll just hope that it doesn't come back.
I mean, do they split the captaincy going forward? because that's the way a lot of sides are doing it. England have done it. Ben Stokes is,
Yeah.
he's the man in charge of the Test side. I know he doesn't play ODIs now because he's recently retired, but even when he was appointed Test captain, and then Owen Morgan stepped down as white ball captain, they didn't just appoint Ben Stokes as captain of all formats. It was Joss Butler who is the next in line for the white ball stuff. Very different formats. Yes, you might have players playing across the different formats, but then do you have somebody like a Hardik Pandya as
White ball.
your white ball skipper? Because he's going to play. He's going to, if he's fit, he plays,
Definitely,
right?
he's
That's
yeah.
100% now. And he's bowling well. And
No
that was the key,
jinxing.
wasn't it? If Hardik Pandya is not bowling, then I don't want to jinx him, but, he seems to have done well with his fitness, and he's got those issues sorted for the foreseeable future. So perhaps he could be an option to lead the white ball sides. And then this is when Rohit Sharma eventually hangs up his captaincy boots. So again, more time for these guys to learn off the current captain in these circumstances, learn about their own game, learn about their teammates, learn tactics, whatever it might be. There's time to grow into these roles, but they need to be groomed from now, don't they? They need to be given some sort of idea by management that, look, we're looking at you as a potential captain in the future. You've not got the job nailed on, but you are one of two or three guys we are looking at, and we want to see that from you on the field. We want to see a leader, and speak to us, speak to the skipper, learn new
Be a
things.
part of the group.
Be in
Yeah.
management meetings. Yeah, the leadership group. So that's what they want, and maybe somebody like a Rishabh could do it in Test cricket because. He's a brilliant white ball player as well, as we know, but they do have other options, don't they, with the gloves in white ball cricket. And even if he does play all three formats, you don't want to bog him down with being the leader of all three formats. So lead in Test cricket because you are our
My
Test
only
keeper.
concern is, he doesn't
And
lose that crazy way of batting, and like in the IPL T20s, he's
yeah, but I
done.
think it works in Test cricket. Yeah, you see, in the
He
IPL,
just
that's what I mean. In the white ball formats, don't give him captaincy. Tell him, look, you are Rishabh Pant, you do Rishabh Pant things. Whatever you feel is necessary, you do, right? You just play your game, we'll back you. And that has been the brand of cricket that India have played recently in white ball cricket, hasn't it? It's been, we just go for it. We're losing wickets, we keep going for it. Even Virat Kohli's brought into this idea that we just need to attack everything. He's not been in form. He could have scratched around against England in those white ball games and just tried to get himself a score somehow, but he didn't do that. He tried to play shots. He was out trying to attack balls he probably shouldn't have been looking to attack, but that's the mentality of the side. Even he bought into that, given his lack of form. So surely Rishabh Pant will do that. And then in Test cricket, you don't mind if he plays a bit more sensibly because he does that anyway. Even when he's not captain, he's matured enough in the last couple of years to know the situation. Yeah, he can go crazy. He can smash sixes left, right, and centre if he needs to, if the platform is there, if that's the situation of the game. But if it's not, he can hang around as well. We've seen him do that. That partnership with Jadeja in the fifth Test against England just this summer. He can do that, and then he can just switch the gears as well. So I think in Test cricket, it might not be such a bad thing to groom him from now, give him a year or two to just work as a vice captain or as just one of the leadership group. Because with Bumrah, look, Bumrah's an intelligent man. He'd probably be a good captain, but he's your premier fast bowler.
He doesn't play at home.
You're trying to protect him. Yeah, he doesn't play at home, so you try and protect him as much as you can as well. And you just don't want that burden on him. India haven't had a fast bowler like Jasprit Bumrah probably ever. And you just need to wrap him in cotton wool and say, look, we'll use you when we need to, but you're not going to play all the games. And we just want you to concentrate on bowling fast and getting wickets. And that is your job. Don't necessarily want you to be a skipper or a vice captain and have to do press conferences and interviews and feel the pressure of the side's performance every time you go out there on the field. Yes, he can still be part of the leadership group. Of course he can. And of course he is. He's the spearhead of the bowling attack. So he will always have an opinion. He will always be there making decisions with the captain. But, Rishabh Pant seems to me the obvious choice in Test cricket, certainly. And then maybe you look at somebody like a Hardik Pandya in white ball cricket. I just don't know if they're going to go that way, though, if they're going to split the captaincy, because that was the whole issue with Virat Kohli, wasn't it? He wanted to give up in T20s. Then firstly, they said, no, we need a a white ball captain, so one guy who does all the white ball cricket, which
And now
again I
no,
don't get.
and
This
now
is
India have
different now.
had so many captains. No one is regular. So that statement kind of made no sense.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
who is the captain, right? Who is the captain of it? I mean, technically on paper is Rohit Sharma, but if you look at matches played and matches captained and all that, I don't know, Shikhar Dhawan's probably up there as one of the leading contenders who's captained the most in the last 12 months. So it's ridiculous. But, they play all formats all the time, everywhere around the world, back to back. It's impossible for the same guys to play in each series and to lead as well. So it'd be interesting to see how they go, certainly in that series in Zimbabwe, and we'll continue talking about that as and when the talking points do come up throughout that short series, and then of course look ahead to the Asia Cup as well. But we're going to have a quick word about the Indian women's team now and women's Test cricket, which has been a massive talking point. The ICC, or certain people at the ICC, have been talking recently about not seeing Test cricket really in the future of women's cricket. First, what do you make of those comments, which came out a couple of weeks ago? But Test cricket isn't really in our plans for the future of women's cricket going forward. Discuss.
And that is evident in their FTP, which was announced today. Pakistan, New Zealand, West Indies have not played a test match. The women's team have not played a test match since 2004. And in the upcoming FTP, which is, I think, from, I'm not really sure which, I think it's for the next few years, yeah. These countries don't play any test match. It's unfortunate, but I'm not really against it, because it's almost like, if you want to attract people to women's cricket, probably doing it through these leagues or through white ball cricket is the first step. That's what I feel. You get people. It's almost like there's a women's IPL. There, ICC has. They've left a window for the women's IPL, hopefully for next year. They have, I think. So I think that's the step forward. You first get in crowds, you get in viewers hooked, you get the players attached, you get the fans attached to the players, and probably once you have the fan base, that's when you go forward and get in a test matches. Because if you start with test cricket right away, 4 days, there are phases, there are dull moments, and you might be like, new watchers might not be very keen, because
but you don't want your new watchers to. That's the thing, right? Because I see exactly what you're saying, and this is probably the thought process that's taken place. But you look at competitions like the 100 in England, and look, I've been part of the commentary team for the BBC for the 100 as well, and I've got some matches coming up too. And it's fine, it's cricket, but the ECB at the start of this whole thing, when people were being a little bit critical of it and why the need for a new format, couldn't you just have a franchise T20 competition? It was the answers they were giving, this is not for you. It's not for people who like cricket, it's for all the new people. That hasn't really been the case, I don't think. I mean, yes, new people are getting into cricket, and probably because of watching the 100, they probably would have got into cricket if they'd marketed a T20 competition in the same way, you could argue as well. But that argument that, this is for the newbies, this is what all new people, they want short format. Well, that's fine. If the ICC are thinking that way regarding women's test matches as well, who cares? Just the majority of women's cricket that is played is white ball cricket, and more it's T20 cricket as well, so the shortest format internationally anyway. And that's how you get the kids in, or the young girls in, or even the young boys watching these games. That's how you get them hooked into cricket, and then you start selling them the test cricket. But it's the players. The players want to play test matches. They're desperate to play test cricket. Their careers are short. They see the men's test games and the men's test series and how dramatic they can be. These are all professional cricketers. All these women are professional cricketers. They want to play test cricket. They want to test themselves to that extent and at the highest level. And that's what it is. It's test cricket. It's called that for a reason. They're the ones who want to play it. They want to have multi-format series. You're probably going to have 132 T20s and 68 ODIs and 2 test matches in the year. But if those 2 test matches come as part of those 2 series where you're playing stupid amounts of T20s and ODIs, so be it. But have that points format, which we've seen India, Australia, and England use, and have that played across a series. And one of those matches won, which at the moment, Sarah, is 4 days, which that's ridiculous as well. That needs to be looked at. Should be 5-day test matches at a maximum. But, 4 or 5 days out of a whole series, and it's one match. You don't have to watch it if you don't want to. The players all want to play in it. It doesn't take, once the players are on tour anyway, it doesn't take that much to stage a test match in. And we're not asking them to stage test matches at the MCG all the time, or at Eden Gardens, or at the Narendra Modi Stadium, or at Lord's. They're going to be in places like Milton Keynes or Canterbury, or wherever, right? They're not going to be in the big grounds. These grounds are crying out for international cricket. They make decent money from international cricket. I'll give you an example. Grace Road in Leicestershire, right? Leicestershire is one of the poorest counties in the current county setup in England. Hasn't always been the case. They were quite successful in the late 90s, and they've won. Nobody's won more T20 domestic competitions than Leicestershire in England. But at the moment, they're having a bad run. They've had a bad decade or so, and they've got no money. But they always get a women's international, an England international every summer, and that makes them a lot of money. So, do it at smaller grounds where these grounds are grateful to have any kind of cricket, be it Test cricket, ODIs, T20s, whatever, because it makes them money. It gives them a bit of prestige. You'll get different people coming to watch who don't get to see international cricket on their doorstep very often. And everyone's a winner, really. I just don't see the logic behind it. Is the ICC, the way they've sort of worded this with, Test cricket it's not a big part of the future of women's cricket going forward. It's like we're asking them for, India, England and Australia to play each other in 5 or 6 test series. We're not asking for 5 or 6 tests in a series. We're asking for one. Maybe more if the appetite is there in the future, but at the moment, just one. And yeah, these 3 countries do it. But then what about your Pakistans? What about your New Zealand? We're talking about New Zealand at the moment. Yeah, Pakistan is a developing side, and hopefully they'll get there on a similar level to the other sides we've spoken about. New Zealand are there or thereabouts. And, they won the bronze at the Commonwealth Games in the T20 competition there. They beat England. They thrashed England in that bronze medal match. And yeah, England would probably, weren't quite with it after being knocked out by India. But still, New Zealand have got some world-class players who are probably going to go an entire career without ever playing one test match.
Even
That's
someone like
ridiculous to me.
Mithali Raj, over almost a career of 20 years, she played 12 matches, which to some laymen might be like only 12 matches, but 12 matches, like in the women's game, if you look at it,
For India as well,
it's like
back then.
a decent amount. But it's still 12 test matches, only 12 test matches. So yeah, you do have a point there. I'm not against women's test matches. I would love it. Last year, India-England test match was spectacular. Obviously, the debates of having one extra day started again. Like, starts every time there is a 4-day test match which is drawn. And I think probably because the test matches are also 4 days and they are hesitant to make it 5 days, we see lesser results. And if like you look back and you're like, okay, this match is a draw, this match is a draw, and maybe the ICC is like all women test matches are draw, so it doesn't get a lot of like what's the point if all matches end up in being draws? So the answer to that is you just make it 5 days. If you want a result, you make it 5 days. So I think ICC needs to take the step ahead in that, but which has not happened this time. Hopefully next time.
Yeah, look, hopefully that will change, and if the appetite is still there from the players going forward, then hopefully player power can have a part to play in that. We'll keep an eye on that. Have you seen the Mithali Raj film?
No, I
Shabash
haven't.
Mittal,
It didn't get a lot of good reviews
on Netflix.
So
It didn't. I found it quite interesting. I mean, it wasn't to the same level of MS Dhoni, The
Yeah.
Untold Story. I thought that was probably my favourite cricket biopic of recent times. But no, it was all
I
right. It was
heard.
good.
I
I
Yeah.
thought Dapsi Panu was good in it, and look, there were some things which you wouldn't quite know, and if you're sitting here listening to our podcast and you're quite young and you don't really know what all the fuss is about women's cricket, having to fight for everything. You just go back and watch that and look at how women's cricketers, international cricketers, had to suffer probably only 10
Yeah.
years ago, even less than 10
They're
years
still
ago.
fighting for a
The amount of
place. Yeah,
suffering,
they're
and
still fighting.
they're still
Yeah.
fighting. You're right. They're still fighting for their place. It's slowly getting there. And look, people know who Mithali Raj is now if they're a cricket fan, generally. They would know who Mithali Raj is. They'll know who maybe Elise Perry is because of the promotion that she's had throughout her career. They might know who Heather Knight is as the England captain, and various others. The Aussies are very well known back in Australia. The England players are getting more and more known, particularly by sports fans in England. In India, I don't quite know the situation. Does everybody know who
I think
Smriti
people do
and
know
Harmanpreet
Smriti,
and
Shafali,
Shafali are?
Harmanpreet. Yeah, these three.
Yeah, Dipti Sharma,
Jemima,
and they would have known Julan Goswami and
Jemima
Mithali
Rodriguez. I
Raj.
think, yeah.
Jamima, of course. They'll even if they don't know she's a cricketer,
Yeah.
they'll follow her on social media
Dance
and
moves
see all
and
the
all.
crazy
Yeah.
stuff that she gets up to. Absolutely, which is brilliant. Look, people know who they are now. People didn't know who they were
Yeah.
just a few years ago. So that's great. In its own respect, and the more televised coverage they get, and the more times that they can play
And
in these
it's,
big ICC
sorry for
tournaments
cutting
and
you
have
off.
a
Yeah.
window
It's
for that.
almost like, strange or coincidental that Shafali, Harmanpreet, and Smriti Mandana have jersey numbers which very legendary male cricketers, men's cricketers from India have worn. So Shafali is 17, which is Rishabh Pant, and Smriti is 18, which is obviously Kohli. Harmanpreet is 7, which is Dhoni. Not comparing, but just a very interesting, coincidence.
When you said legendary, I mean they are. Well, Rishabh
Yeah.
Pant's on his way there, but the other two certainly
Superstars. Yeah.
legendary. I was thinking of like going back a few years. Like, is there a 10 for Tendulkar or a 45 for Sehwag or something like that? You're going a little bit further back in my mind, but look, it's a good way to brand yourselves as well, isn't it? With the numbers now on the backs of shirts. But look, hopefully they'll get more and more exposure, and the climate does change in terms of women's test matches. Just on a final note, I've wished you happy
Thank you
birthday.
again.
Should be wishing
Yeah.
India happy birthday as well, shouldn't I? On 75 years of independence. Fantastic occasion for everybody in India. I suppose you've been seeing all the flags flying for days and weeks over there. Were there any big celebrations where you were? Were there fireworks allowed? I don't know what the fireworks situation
Yeah,
is in India. Do
fireworks
they have they
are.
banned
It's
fireworks?
not banned. It's fireworks are everywhere all the time. No,
Frowned
all the
upon.
time. Any occasion, India wins
No?
a match, there are fire.
Okay.
India win a match against Zimbabwe,
Because
there'll
you
be
see all the
firecrackers. So it's.
well, you see all the yeah, well that's good to know. But I mean, obviously, I don't quite know about all the pollution and everything. But you see cricketers, don't you, and Bollywood stars
Yeah.
just every Diwali saying, "Have a safe Diwali, no fireworks." I mean, here in the UK, any excuse, Diwali, bonfire night, New Year's Eve, particularly on Diwali in a place like Leicester, where I am, a big Indian community. All night the fireworks will just be going off, and it's a great occasion. So that's good to hear. So there were fireworks there for the independence, and great celebrations as well, I would imagine. Um, it's been some journey, hasn't it, as a country, as a
Yeah.
cricketing nation as well. You look back to, the great captains of the past, the great teams of the past. Yes, India had their first Test series in 1932, and that was CK Naidu. But 1947 was India as an independent nation. Nobody really wanted to play them back then, did they? They used to get very few international matches played against them. There was the odd tour and things like that. And it was difficult to tour countries like England and Australia back then with all the travel as well, going on
Yeah.
ships and whatnot. But there's been so many great moments over the years. I mean, look, the time where India probably really arrived on the world stage and showed that we can compete properly against good teams, I would say was 1971, winning in the West Indies and winning in England, both series 1-0, both under Ajit Wadakar's captaincy. And what a great year that was for Indian cricket. You could argue the West Indies didn't have the battery of pace bowlers that they had in the years after that, but they were still a formidable side on home turf. And to go there and beat them with the side we had, and Sunil Gavaskar on debut with breaking records left, right, and centre, basically batting without a helmet on uncovered pitches, and then the four spinners sort of bowling India to victory at the Oval in 1971 as they won that series. That was probably the first moment they showed a glimpse of, we can be a really good side if we get our shit together, basically, was always the problem, wasn't it? Can we get our shit together as a side, put all our politics aside? Can the board come together in terms of selection? Can we just pick our best players and go and play and pick a good captain and just see how we go? And that appears to be what they did on those couple of occasions. And look, the 80s, the mid 80s, I wasn't born when they won the 1983 World Cup, neither were you, but that was the landmark moment in terms of ODI cricket, just like 2007 was with T20 cricket and winning that World Cup. Kapil Dev, those great moments on the balcony there at Lord's, and then they won the World Championship of Cricket in 85, won a test series in England in 86. I mean, the 80s were pretty good. And then a certain young Sachin Ramesh Tendulkar appeared in 1989 just to finish that decade off as well and take over the reins as India's premier batter for many, many years to come. I mean, look, through the 90s, I've got so many memories growing up in the 90s of Indian cricket, particularly sort of towards the mid and late 90s into the 2000s. The victory in Pakistan in 2004 was great. The 2011 World Cup, winning a test series in England in 2007 during my lifetime was fantastic. I mean, what are the big standout moments for you from India as an independent cricketing
I
nation?
think the 2007 Test series, I used to listen to commentary back then. I didn't have cable back then. So I think that was my early initiation into cricket. 2007 Test series, India won after the 2007 World Cup disaster. And I think that
Yep.
was the period when I was getting hooked to cricket also. So that Test series obviously was very memorable. Then there was the 2007 World Cup, which you said. There was the Perth Test also, which a few months later, before that, it was all the Sydney drama with Ricky Ponting and, signaling out Steve Bucknor, Andrew Simons, Harbhajan Singh. So it was,
Steve Buckner's like a swear
yeah,
word in India, isn't it?
yeah.
Let's not mention Steve Buckner and Sachin Tendulkar.
Yeah.
Anyway,
So yeah, there was the
carry
Perth
on.
Test match, which come from behind win. After that, it was Test cricket was kind of a lull. After that, 0-8 thrashing under MS Dhoni. But how after that, how they've come back, Test cricket, Virat Kohli, just bringing not only Indian Test cricket scene alive, but overall world cricket test, like world cricket. I would say world is more aware to test cricket probably because of Virat Kohli. The passion, he's the one who gets in the crowds, and he has always said that he's so passionate about test cricket. uh, the gap win in Australia, like Brisbane, was, I think, the finest wins ever in the test circuit.
The whole
Yeah.
series, to be honest. I mean, I'd mentioned on the last podcast, 2001,
Yeah.
Australia. I mean, that's probably my favorite memory of ever watching India in my entire lifetime, just because of how young I was and the whole circumstance of getting up in the middle of the night and watching this
Yeah.
before school every day, and having to miss the final session and then catch up on the highlights and all that kind of stuff. But every Indian cricket fan for years and years after that said that is the
Yeah.
greatest Test series of all time. That's changed now, isn't it? After the win at the
36
Gabba
all out,
and
and
winning down
then
under with
just no Kohli, no
36 all
Bumrah,
out.
no Ashwin, no Jadeja. Like, they
Yep.
had no one. And then
I mean, T. Natarajan and Washington
Shardul
Sundar,
Thakur.
and I mean, with the
Yeah.
greatest respect to these guys, you're not going to pick them to tour Australia in a Test match team, are you? I mean, and then the stories behind it. Look, Mohammad Siraj, his dad
Yeah.
passed away, quite recently. They were all at the IPL in the bubble before
And the
that
whole
as well in the
COVID
UAE.
scene, it was the first, I think
Yeah,
the first series
they were
after
all on lockdown, weren't
COVID.
they?
And just the whole, yeah.
Natarajan was there,
His
his
daughter was
daughter,
born.
he hadn't met
Yeah.
his daughter for months because she was born while he was in the bubble in the IPL. He thought he'll, go over to Australia, play some T20 games and then go back to India and see her. And it'd only be a couple of weeks. Ended up being months because he was retained as a net bowler for the whole tour. And then finally had to get his opportunity. I mean, they had no choice, did they? Well, they did have a choice. They could have played
Kartik
Kuldeep, who's
Tyagi
the
was
only
there
man
as a net
who
bowler.
unfortunately...
Kartik Tyagi.
Kartik
Yeah,
Tyagi was there, but in terms of the
Yeah.
squad, like they could have picked Tyagi or Natarajan, and at the time, Tyagi can be
Yeah.
expensive, can't he? Natarajan can at least keep it tight, wicket to wicket. So it's pretty much the only option they had in terms of a seam bowler. Just get him in there. Ended up winning the Test match with the team, and what great scenes! I mean, that's got to be India's greatest ever Test series victory, hasn't it? I mean, we've not seen all the Test victories, obviously, over the years. We weren't born, but even just reading about them, I mean, the whole drama, the circumstances, you're down to basically a C team. Half of
I'd
your
say a
side is
Z
like
team.
C, D choice players.
Yeah.
Almost, right? Is T. Natarajan ever going to play Test cricket again?
Yeah, I
I
don't
don't think so.
And especially after that,
That's not gonna happen,
Ashwin's
is it?
YouTube videos and the whole, like, he's recounting every moment, and everyone, he himself said that we had plan A, plan B, plan C, plan D to save the test match. But then Rishabh Pant had his own plan. So, it was just like,
Yeah.
what is happening? But whatever happened, it was finally made staying up for a test series in Australia worth
It was brilliant.
And on that, like, last
Right.
bit, I'd say, making it about myself again, the Lord's Test last year was on 16th August, the best birthday gift that I could have probably asked for.
Brilliant. What a day to do it, and a day after the anniversary of independence as well. And I got to commentate on the
wow.
final wicket, Mohammad Siraj bowling Jimmy Anderson there, and that famous picture which was doing the rounds as well of Anderson just still trying to play his forward defensive while everyone's celebrating around him and the wickets are all over the place.
It was
absolutely
not his
fantastic
last test
scenes.
match. Kohli's last test series, I think, as a captain.
As a captain. He captained in South Africa there, didn't he, for the tests?
Oh, yeah,
and
sorry.
then decided to step down. But it was KL Rahul stepped in, didn't he, for one of the
Test
test
win,
matches,
I'd
which
say.
is
like
why...
last test series win, if you want to say.
Well, series
if you want
win,
to consider
we're
it a
calling it
four-match
series
series.
win. Should we get on the Wikipedia page and click edit and see if we can change it to a test series win? We'll have a go at that. Anyway, I'm off to watch that series down under. You got me thinking now. I want to go and watch the Gabba Test highlights on YouTube now. So I'm going to go and do that. Remember, you can catch us on YouTube as well if you're not watching on YouTube right now. If you're listening to the audio feed, if you are watching on YouTube, you can listen to us on the move via your usual podcast producer. It's India on 99.9. For I'm Nikesh Ragani. This is Sarah Waris. Thank you very much for listening, and do join us again next time.